Hello, welcome to another video. Today, as you can tell from the title, I am talking to you about some books that I consider underhyped. Now, I don't necessarily mean underhyped by everyone, but I mean kind of underhyped in general, underhyped by me, books that I really like but don't talk about enough. Either they don't fit into whatever I'm talking about, or I've just read them once, said I really enjoyed them, and then never really picked them up to recommend again. So, we have a few books to chat about today that I think are really good, and I don't get the opportunity to recommend to you enough. So that's what we're doing here today. I've separated this into 5 YAs, 5 middle grades. I realised that I don't necessarily read underhyped adult books. A lot of the adult books I've read are well loved by a lot of people, and a lot of them I've read off recommendations from other people anyway, so definitely not underhyped, and I don't think I've read enough that I don't talk about. Like, we know I love The Greatcoats, we know I love Mistborn, we know I've been loving Hob, like, it's fine. So I don't have any of those to talk about, but YAs and middle grades that I love and don't recommend to you enough. So yeah, let's get on with that. First up on here we have The Last Namsara by Kristin Ciccarelli. This I really loved a lot, and I still haven't finished the series, so I really need to do that. But this is a book that whenever I look at it on my shelves, I think, oh, I really loved that, I need to read that last one. And every time I look at it, I go, oh, I really loved that. But I never talk about it enough. I've mentioned it a few times, but definitely not enough in my opinion. So this is about a young girl called Asha who is a dragon slayer. There are dragons in this world, and Asha is scarred from her encounters with dragons, and she is a slayer of dragons, which immediately would make you think that you're not gonna like her, but there's so much more to it than that. As the dragon slayer and daughter of the ruler of this village, is he a king? I think he might be a king. But as the dragon slayer and the daughter of the king or ruler, her life is very lonely, and all of the people think she's wicked for the deeds that she does. And in order to atone for something that she's done in the past, she has set the task of killing the most powerful dragon. She's also forced into an arranged marriage and is desperate for her freedom from that, and perhaps killing this really powerful dragon can grant her freedom, but it's not as simple as that. There is something preventing this from happening, and it's Ash's journey, really. I don't want to say too much because I don't want to spoil anything, but I really like this. And then the sequel follows Roa, so it's a different character but in the same world. And then the third book, which I haven't read yet, follows Saf, who is, again, different character, same world. So they're all kind of companions. I really love how it all knits together. But I don't talk about this enough, and I think people are put off when you say Dragon Slayer, because you're like, killing dragons? Oh my god. But I still recommend. I think it's really good. I know that some people really haven't liked this, but I really do. I think it's pretty decent, and I really need to get round to reading the third one in this series, because this series held a dear place in my heart, and every time I look at it I'm reminded of how much I love it, how much I love the dragons and the characters. I think it's really solid. Destroyer, Deathbringer, Dragon Slayer, I am more weapon than girl. I think Ash is a really interesting character. I think it's a really interesting world with fascinating politics and how dragon slaying is a part of that. I don't recommend it enough. I don't talk about it enough. I really love it. Next up, we have The Wise and the Wicked by Rebecca Podos. This one's actually only a recent read for me. I'm really sorry about that, son. I read it for Polathon in February, but I'm including it in here because I don't know when I will get the opportunity to recommend this, because it's really not my usual read. I went into this expecting Russian folklore fantasy, and that's not necessarily what I got. I feel like the house with chicken legs on the back was a little bit misleading for me. But it's about a young girl called Ruby who comes from a family of Russian women who, when they reach a certain age, can astral project into the future to see the person they are when they die. They don't necessarily see how they die, but they see what their life is like when they die, what their personality is like, how they're feeling, so they can kind of tell how their life's gone and how they've got to that point when they die. And Ruby has her time, she sees her time and wants to change it. She does not want that to be how she dies or where she's at in life when she dies. So it's about her trying to change her path. But it's really not as fantastical as I thought it was going to be, nor is it as rooted in Russian folklore as I thought it might be. It's much more contemporary, so not really my usual cup of tea, but a lot about the family dynamics and how this family fits together with some witchy vibes as well. So there is definitely a fantastical element to it. We do have the witchiness and the kind of like witchy conspiracy in there, but it's not as like heavily fantastical as I expected, or as rooted in Russian folklore as I expected. That being said, I still really thoroughly enjoyed this. It took me by surprise, one, because it wasn't what I was expecting, but two, because when I realised it wasn't what I was expecting, I didn't expect to enjoy it anywhere near as much as I did. Of course, I have my vlog where I read this because I read it in a day for Polathon, so you can kind of see that revelation happen throughout that vlog. But yeah, I did really end up enjoying this one quite a lot, and I don't know how else I'm going to recommend this to you because it's not my usual read, I don't think. It's a little bit weird, but was a lot of fun. I enjoyed. Next up, I have A River of Royal Blood. Wow, that's really reflective, I'm sorry. A River of Royal Blood by Amanda Joy. I'll just hold it this side. This is a North African-inspired fantasy world where a young girl called Eva, on her 17th name day, she must fight her sister to the death for the throne. And that sounds really fascinating. And there have been other books that have had that sort of premise of fighting to the death that have not followed through. This, I think, did a much better job with that. These two girls, Eva and I think her sister's name is Isa, maybe. They are the princesses of this kingdom, and on Eva's 17th birthday, they must begin their fight to the death for the throne. Only one of them can survive. Everyone in this world has a touch of magic, and Eva has blood magic, or magic of marrow and blood, which is this really dangerous, rare magic. So she's not really been trained with how to use it the way her sister has. So she's at kind of a disadvantage because of that. However, when someone attempts to assassinate Eva, she needs to seek out an ancient Fae instructor to teach her how to use her blood magic, because she either has to kill her sister or her sister will kill her. And that's the basic premise of this, but there's so much more to it that I cannot explain without risking spoiling it, so I won't. But this was really good. I didn't expect to enjoy this anywhere near as much as I did. Something about the cover of this just put me off a little bit, but they have since had a cover redesign and I need to get my hands on the sequel, like, soon. It really surprised me with how much I ended up really enjoying this. It was really gripping. I think I picked it up after I was struggling with a different book and I was thinking, am I in a slump or did I not just like this book? And then I picked this one up, flew through it, really enjoyed it, thought it was super compelling, and I don't think I recommend it enough. I think this was really great. Lots of lore and myth in there, and little bit of violence too. I liked it a whole heck of a lot and don't recommend it enough. So A River of Royal Blood by Amanda Joy. If you haven't read it yet, I encourage you to do so, and I need to get my mitts on the second one. Next up is another one that I actually have read recently myself, again for Polathon, is Echo North by Joanna Ruth Mayer. This is a East of the Sun, West of the Moon retelling, and solidified for me how much I love East of the Sun, West of the Moon retellings, which is a variation of a Beauty and the Beast retelling, but I think, is it a Norse retelling of Beauty and the Beast that's then kind of become its own myth in East of the Sun, West of the Moon? I don't know. But I really enjoyed this a whole heck of a lot. Again, I have a vlog where I read this one in a day for Polathon if you want to see my live thoughts on that. But I really, really enjoyed this. Follows a young girl called Echo, whose father goes missing in the woods, and she goes to find him and is confronted by a talking wolf. This talking wolf happened to be the wolf that attacked her many years before and has left her face incredibly scarred. The wolf agrees that her father will be home and safe if she agrees to live with him for a year. She agrees to this. It then follows Echo living with this wolf, discovering the enchanted house, which is beneath a mountain, all of the magic and wonders within that, and the struggles she faces with living with this wolf because she is not allowed to look upon his face at night. However, she knows that he sleeps near her at night. I don't want to go too much further with that because I don't want to risk spoiling anything, but if you're familiar with the classic fairy tale of East of the Sun, West of the Moon, I know there are other fairy tales that take the same sort of story as fairy tales do. They all take from each other, but I don't want to say too much because I don't want to spoil anything. I really liked this. I really liked Echo. I really liked the little adventures she went on and how she discovered things, how she put things together, the way she handled things. It's so difficult to talk about this without spoiling anything, but if you're familiar with that fairy tale, you'll know where it goes. You'll know how it goes. I really enjoyed this. I thought it was a fantastic retelling, inspired me to read the original, and I am now on the hunt for more East of the Sun, West of the Moon retellings, so if you have any, let me know, because I really want to read more of them. This little patch of sun here, this, annoying me. You can see what the book is, right? This one. Next up, I have Beyond a Darkened Shore by Jessica Leek. This is one that I didn't know if I was going to enjoy, but then when I read it, really fell in love with it in the end. I think it was from a Fairy Loot box, and it was one where I was like, oh yeah, meh. And then I read it and loved it, which tends to happen quite a lot with books like it from Fairy Loots. But this one follows a young princess called Kiara, who is the princess of Mide, and she can barely remember a time when Northmen weren't plundering the shores of her divided homeland. But Kiara has this ability to control men's minds, which is a great weapon to be when your homeland is being invaded by Northmen, because she can control their minds. However, is it a crow? Yes, a mysterious crow has been appearing to Kiara, whispering warnings of an even darker threat. Although her clansmen dismiss her visions as superstition, she fears that this looming threat will not just destroy her homeland, but the entire world. It's not then until she captures one of these Northmen called Leaf that she discovers that she's not the only person having these superstitious visions and seeing this prophecy, and they, although our enemies, will have to become unlikely allies to prevent this looming threat from destroying the world. As you can probably imagine, a little bit of romance there too, but it did not overshadow the whole plot for me, and the lore and the legend and the action in this, I think, balanced out very well, and I ended up really enjoying this, and therefore then read Jessica Leek's second book, which is Through the Whitewood, which, although it's not a sequel to this, is a companion, and really enjoyed that as well. And I think Jessica Leek has become a little bit of an auto-buy author for me. Not one of my like all-time faves, but definitely an author that I will read from again and again because her books are just really compelling to me, and this was one of them. And I loved the lore and the mythology and legend woven into this as well. Same with Through the Whitewood. I think she does a great job with that, so I don't recommend this enough, and here is me recommending it. Next we go into my middle grade recommendations for you, middle grades that I don't think I talk about enough, so let's get started. First up, A Place Called Perfect by Helena Duggan. They've got their eyes on you. This follows a young girl called Violet who moves to a town called Perfect with her family, where everything is a little bit suspicious. Everyone wears these glasses, it feels like something's not quite right, and then her father goes missing and her mother appears to be brainwashed. It's not until she meets a mysterious boy that she realises that her father's not the only person to have gone missing, and her mother is not the only person to be acting a little bit strange. So Violet and Boy try and work out what's not so perfect about Perfect, what's going on, and can they solve it. This gives me very Coraline-y vibes, and I think at the point of reading this, I read this not long after I had read Coraline, so it felt a bit too similar. However, looking back on it now and having read the whole trilogy, I really recommend this. If you're a fan of Coraline and that kind of a little bit creepy, a little bit eerie middle grade, this is great fun, and Violet and Boy are a great duo to follow. They get themselves into all sorts of mischief, obviously, and Perfect is perfectly creepy and definitely not perfect. It's been a long time since I read these, which is why I think I don't recommend them as much as I used to, maybe, but they're good fun. I recommend if you want that kind of creepy but fun middle grade story. And how the trilogy progresses from this to where we are in the third one, it's wild. It's a little bit mind-blowing, but good fun, and I recommend. Next up is another one that I read pretty recently, which is why I haven't had the opportunity to recommend it much yet, but that is The Republic of Birds by Jessica Miller. I read this one for Polathon this year and really loved it. This one is about a land that's been at war with the birds, and when I say birds, I literally mean like seagulls. Birds. And it follows a young girl called Olga whose father works for the Tsarina, however has displeased her, so his workplace has been moved to somewhere very much out of the way. It's almost like banishment. And her family are not happy about this. And her father is a little bit obsessed with getting revenge on the birds. But the birds take something from Olga that is very precious to her, and she has to go and get it back. Alongside that, this world is not okay with magic. Magic is very much forbidden, and Olga may have a touch of something she shouldn't, and also need to learn how to handle that and deal with that. So she's got a lot on her plate. This world is also pulling inspiration from Russian fairy tales too. We've got Baba Yagas, we've got the house with chicken legs going on in here as well. I had a great time with this. It was really adventurous, but had all the sort of like polar fantasy, Slavic folklore vibes that I love. I think it was a great combination, really quick read, very compelling. Again, I have a vlog where I read this one in a day for Polathon, so you can check out my thoughts there if you want. I really enjoyed this. If you're a fan of Sophie Anderson and her Russian folklore-inspired books, then I really think you would enjoy this, so there's my recommendation to you. Next up, I have Orion Lost by Alistair Chisholm. This was a book we picked for Middle Grade Monthly that did really well. A lot of people seemed to really enjoy it. However, since then, I haven't recommended it enough. I haven't seen more people picking it up since then, and I really think it's fantastic, and that if you haven't, you should. In my opinion, this one, if you are a fan of middle grade and a fan of sci-fi, you will love this. If you are a fan of middle grade but not a fan of sci-fi, I still think you will love this. If you are not a fan of middle grade but are a fan of sci-fi, I still think you will love this. If you don't like middle grade and you don't like sci-fi, maybe not. But any other combination of that, I think this is great. This follows a young girl called Beth. I think she's 13? Yeah, she's 13. So this follows 13-year-old Beth, who is on the spaceship Orion, where her and her family, all of the children and the adults, are on their way to their new home. However, disaster strikes along the way, and all of the adults are put into sleep, but the children are not. And the children then have to navigate the ship back to safety. But they're kids, which proves very challenging. Alongside children having to navigate this spaceship back to safety, the AI on the ship is a little bit suspicious, and Beth isn't entirely sure if she can trust it. And as well as that, they're all kids. They don't necessarily get on all of the time, and them working together to get the ship back to safety is kind of important. So there's a lot of struggles that Beth has to face captaining this ship back to safety. I had a fantastic time reading this, and it got some fantastic reviews when we did Middle Grade Monthly with it. Lots of people seem to really love it, but I just haven't recommended it enough since then. So if you didn't read this one for Middle Grade Monthly and you haven't heard me rave about it, trust me, it's fantastic. If you like middle grade, if you like sci-fi, if you like either, do yourself a favour. This is fantastic. You should read it. Next up, we have The Dreadful Tale of Prosper Redding by Alexandra Bracken. This is one that I really enjoyed at the time of reading, but have not yet got to the sequel. I need to sort myself out and get to the sequel of this one, because I really enjoyed this first one. This follows a young boy called Prosper Redding who is cursed. His family are all remarkable. They are all fantastic. They all have something that makes them incredibly special or talented or something out of the ordinary. Prosper is unremarkable. He's not got this special thing that everyone else in his family has. And he works out why, and he works out why he may be cursed. And that's because the Redding family made a pact with a demon, a pact that they broke. And that demon wants to cash in on that, and Prosper is the price. This book is really weird. The family dynamics, really weird. The want to sacrifice a child, really weird. Demons aren't a big fan of forgiveness, they prefer revenge, and the demon's revenge is getting hold of Prosper. I'm laughing about this because this book is also really funny, as well as this threat over Prosper and how awful his life has become and how his family will definitely have it in for him, as well as this demon having it in for him. There is someone else who may also have it in for him. He's not having a great time, he doesn't have much luck, but it's still really funny, and the voice of the demon and his interaction with Prosper is just really entertaining. This was great fun, and I really do recommend. I need to get to the sequel for this one though, because I have not yet done that. And how much I enjoyed this one makes me think I'm definitely going to enjoy the sequel. I just haven't got there yet. I wonder if I should probably reread this one first, but I think it's going to be great fun to dive into the sequel, and if you haven't yet read the first one, I recommend. It's good fun, it's funny. It's funny and full of demons. And finally, my last book to recommend to you is Wonderscape by Jennifer Bell. This one was such great fun. This follows a group of kids who accidentally find themselves stumbling into an in-reality adventure game, which is kind of like a virtual reality adventure game, but in reality. They stumble into it. They accidentally travel into the future, into this game, and need to work out how they get home. They find themselves trapped in the year 2473, lost in the Wonderscape, an epic in-reality adventure game, and they need to call on the help of some unlikely historical heroes to get themselves out. So they have to progress through the levels of this game, and each level has like a historical figure as the boss of that level of the game, and they need to get the help of those people in order to work out how to get themselves back to their timeline, back to their world, back to their reality. But this was so fast-paced, so much fun. Like, from the first page, the pacing of this one is absolutely fantastic. Such a fast read, so compelling, so action-packed. Like, I did not want to put this down once I'd started reading it, and I can't recommend it enough. It's such good fun. It's kind of a mix of, I think it's advertised as like a mix of Ready Player One meets Jumanji. I have not read or watched Ready Player One, so I can't speak for that, but it's definitely got that like techie, futuristic vibe meets Jumanji in getting stuck in a game and needing to find your way out of it. Really good fun, and not one I've seen a lot of people raving about, which surprises me because it's a pretty recent book. Like, I think it was only 2020. Yeah, it was a 2020 release, but I've not seen enough people raving about this one. It's fantastic, and I don't think I've spoken about it or recommended it since I read it, so here's me doing that because this was fantastic. Jennifer Bell's writing is great, and I read her first book after I'd read this one, which I think is her fourth, and her writing is consistently fantastic. I can't wait to read more from her because it is really good. So there you go, there's that. Also, I sprayed the edges of this one red, and I just feel like it matches me today, in the red shirt and the red hair and the red book. Feeling very red, but yeah, I love this. And there we have it. There are my 10 underhyped books. Not necessarily underhyped by everyone, but definitely not recommended enough by me. So here's me recommending them to you. I hope you have enjoyed this video. If you have, give us a thumbs up. Chat to me down below. Let me know if you've read any of these. Let me know if you have any underhyped recommendations for me to maybe check out. That'd be great. But thanks for hanging out with me for a little bit today, and I will see you tomorrow. Hope you're enjoying Vida. Yeah, see you in the next one. Bye!